Over 100 years ago, the German army, many of whom were inspired by people who were narrow-minded when it came to matters of race or ethnicity theories, formed the bedrock of later Nazi ethnicity thinking. This took out 75% of the Herero and 50% of the Nama in what later became known as the Namibian Genocide. We will never forget that. The Namibian Genocide has been written out of history, but we have chosen to remember it today. We will never forget these atrocities because the perpetrators are unrepentant and show no sign of remorse. The same Germans today are supporting Israel as Netanyahu is taking out innocent Palestinian women and children. Namibia says it rejects Germany's support of the genocidal intent of the Israeli state, which is narrow-minded when it comes to matters of race and ethnicity, and says that Germany committed the first genocide in the 20th century on Namibian soil. Before we go deep down into these stories, let's tell you more about the Namibian genocide. The Herero and Nama genocide was an ethnic cleansing and collective punishment operation carried out by the German Empire against the Herero and Nama in German Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. It was the first genocide of the 20th century and started in 1904, lasting until 1908. Namibia was formally colonized by Germany in 1884. The Herero, Nama, Damara, San, and Ovambo were diverse Aboriginal communities that roamed the area freely before colonization. Numerous indigenous communities were subjected to forced labor, land confiscation, and cattle theft during the German occupation. Tensions between the indigenous people and the dominant Germans grew worse as a result of this treatment. The Herero people, led by Samuel Maharero, and the Nama people, commanded by Captain Hendrik Witbooi, rose out in rebellion against German colonial rule in January 1904. They terminated about 100 German settlers in the Okanja region on January 12. The genocide claimed the lives of 10,000 Nama and between 24,000 to 100,000 Hereros. Widespread losses from famine and dehydration marked the first phase of the genocide due to German forces preventing the Herero from escaping the Namib Desert. Thousands of Hereros and Namas were captured in concentration camps after being defeated, and most of them perished from illnesses, maltreatment, and fatigue. The German government acknowledged the incidents in 2004 and offered what a German minister called an apology. However, they did not agree to provide monetary reparations to the victims' families. The events were formally referred to as a genocide in July 2015 by the German government, but it refused to consider reparations at that time. One of the bitter reminders of the genocide was the presence of human remains of Herero, Nama, and San in German museums, medical schools, and hospitals. Skulls, bones, and whole bodies were experimented on by German scholars over the next century. Some of the experiments were aimed at attempting to justify the race and ethnicity scientific theories that underpinned German physical anthropological perspectives on race until the end of the Second World War and beyond. All the same, in 2018, Petra Bosshuber, a German Protestant bishop, described the return of the last shipment of skulls and other remains of the terminated tribesmen to Namibia, claiming they were carried to Germany to support the supremacy of race. Finally, in May 2021, which was 3 years after the German government issued an official apology for the atrocities in Namibia, the nation unveiled a plan to deal with the disaster. Under the plan, Namibia had to receive $1.2 billion in development aid, of which $54 million would be allocated to initiatives promoting study, remembering, and reconciliation, and the remaining amount would be used to support the communities of impacted descendants. Many Namibians rejected the agreement, arguing that the descendants of the Herero and Nama had not been sufficiently involved in the talks. In the most recent turn of events, Namibia has denounced Germany for its shocking decision to back Israel in the genocide lawsuit at the International Court of Justice launched by South Africa. The president of Namibia, Hage Geingob, tweeted on the X app that Germany had chosen to defend in the International Court of Justice the genocidal and gruesome acts of the Israeli government against innocent civilians in Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories. According to South Africa's testimony to the court, Israel's air and military assault which has destroyed a large portion of the enclave and taken out about 24,000 people, was intended to bring about the destruction of the population of Gaza. South Africa alleges Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the wake of Hamas's 7 October attack. The Namibian presidency's statement also said that Berlin was ignoring the fact that Israel had terminated over 23,000 Palestinians in Gaza, and that several unsettling UN reports had shown that 2.3 million people in the besieged enclave had been internally displaced due to severe food and service shortages. The Namibian president expressed deep concern over the shocking decision communicated by the government of Germany on Friday, in which it rejected the morally upright indictment brought forward by South Africa. The statement claimed that Germany committed the first genocide of the 20th century in Namibia between 1904 and 1908, in which tens of thousands of innocent Namibians perished in the most inhumane and brutal conditions. The presidency said Germany cannot morally express commitment to the United Nations Convention Against Genocide, including atonement for the genocide in Namibia, while supporting the equivalent of a Holocaust and genocide in Gaza. President Geingob appealed to the German government to reconsider its untimely decision to intervene as a third party in defense and support of the genocidal acts of Israel before the International Court of Justice. The settlement Germany wanted to do was intended to be a win-win situation. Namibia would receive much-needed assistance, and Germany would make amends for its horrific crimes. However, it was seen as a betrayal to the communities that survived. Protests broke out in the Namibian capital, Windhoek, as people vehemently opposed the agreement, saying it was dictated by Germany. Berlin's ties to Israel have been defined by the Holocaust, but Namibia's relationship with Germany is overshadowed by its colonial past. The German government has tenfold boosted its arms exports since the start of the Gaza conflict. According to some analysts, there is precedent for Germany to intervene in cases involving genocide, and it is evident from Germany's history that it is particularly concerned about this. In all fairness, Germany has intervened in previous cases of genocide before the International Court of Justice, namely the case brought by Ukraine against Russia and the case brought by the Gambia against Myanmar. But why is South Africa bringing this case to the International Court of Justice? The International Court of Justice, ICJ, was established in 1945 during World War II by the United Nations Charter. As the primary court of the United Nations, it can hear matters on behalf of all member nations following treaties, agreements, or other forms of consent. On a legal matter, certain groups may also request that the court render a non-binding advisory opinion. When a state violates an international legal obligation or a norm of international law, the International Court of Justice renders a decision on matters of state responsibility. It's not a court for crimes. For instance, it makes no decisions regarding a person's criminal liability. A different, unrelated court in The Hague, the International Criminal Court, serves this function, and South Africa, with other like-minded states, has already referred the situation in Gaza to it for investigation. South Africa brought this case at the ICJ against Israel under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, also known as the Genocide Convention, to which both states are parties. But what does South Africa have to do with what is happening in Gaza? The Genocide Convention allows any state party to bring a case against another state party to the ICJ on issues including responsibility for genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, or attempt to commit genocide. The ICJ recently confirmed this in a case brought by the Gambia, which accused Myanmar of committing genocide against the Rohingya, as mentioned earlier. When it comes to disputes between states, the International Court of Justice is the highest international court. Should the verdict be in South Africa's favor, Israel may face considerable legal pressure to change its course. This might help establish the framework for peace negotiations. Nonetheless, there can be difficulties in implementing the court's decisions, and Israel has a patchy history of abiding with international legal decisions. If Israel is found guilty, this might lead to more international isolation and a decline in the country's political and economic support. This might encourage Israel to look for a way to end the conflict so that it can mend fences with other countries. Bear in mind that the legal action and related court hearings may bring attention to the conflict and the suffering of Gaza's Palestinian population on a global scale. This will change people's perceptions throughout the world and exert pressure on institutions and governments to take peace-promoting measures. The court case will also affect Israel's and South Africa's internal politics. It will bolster the government's standing and win over people in South Africa who are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. It might strengthen public opinion against concessions and feed nationalist sentiment in Israel. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry called this lawsuit a historic move and expressed its deep appreciation to South Africa for taking a stand against Israeli genocidal crimes. Palestine has pledged full cooperation with South Africa and the International Court of Justice to ensure the success of this endeavor. They encouraged other countries to support the case and hold Israel accountable. The court proceedings and arguments presented by all parties will likely influence Germany's legal strategy and potentially its overall stance on the case. The international community's response to South Africa's lawsuit against Israel at the International Court of Justice, alleging genocide in Gaza, is promising. The Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, which includes Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, and Morocco, voiced their support for the case on December 30. In a statement released on January 2, the Malaysian Ministry of Foreign Affairs welcomed the South African application. It reiterated a call for an independent Palestinian state based on the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. The Maldives, Namibia, Pakistan, the Arab League, Colombia, and Brazil are some other countries that are in support of South Africa. The United States has voiced its opposition to the genocide case. National Security spokesperson John Kirby called South Africa's submission meritless, counterproductive, and completely without any basis during a White House press briefing on January 3. The United Kingdom, which has refused to support the case, has been accused of double standards after it submitted detailed legal documents to the ICJ about a month ago to support claims that Myanmar committed genocide against the Rohingya community. South Africa's lawsuit has thrown a legal, political, and moral spotlight on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but its long-term impact on the ground and in the international arena remains uncertain. Only time will tell whether it paves the way for justice and accountability, fuels greater division, or becomes a footnote in the long and fraught history of this complex conflict. Regardless of the ICJ's ultimate decision, the issue of Palestinian suffering and Israeli actions in Gaza will continue to demand attention and solutions. Diplomatic efforts, grassroots initiatives, and ongoing dialogue remain crucial for addressing the underlying causes of the conflict and building a lasting peace. We have come to the end of this video. Do you think this lawsuit is going to end this ongoing conflict? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too, so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you in our next video.